In my video last year, I predicted the evolution of a mechanic I called the dummy play. Essentially, one player on a team would jump up early to simply claim the ball so that the opponents wouldn't be tempted to go for it. After doing so, their teammate would secretly also jump for it, but a little bit later and from a much more deadly position. As the first player fakes it, the second puts on a beautiful power shot, stunning the defense completely. While the name dummy play didn't really stick, just as I predicted, the exact idea of faking for a teammate totally evolved in pro play over the course of last year.
Absolutely put on a show here to get some crazy goals and little misdirection, and Queso's going to snipe the left post.
Today, we'll see if I can do it again, because I've got 5 more mechanics to talk about. These are 5 mechanics that will become the meta in 2023. For years, the pre-jump was a mechanic that was only used in the freestyling world. It was obvious from the start that this mechanic had competitive benefits too, but it was so risky and difficult to pull off that pros didn't really utilize it for years. Until recently, a passing play has always happened in 3 main steps. 1, the pass itself is sent. 2, the receiver reads it and jumps for it. And 3, the receiver shoots it on target. However, we've reached a point in Rocket League where pros are just about as efficient as they can be with this 3-step process. Fast aerials are pretty much as fast as possible, reads are nearly there too, and even when executed as fast as physics allow, it still gets cut off by defenders who know what they're doing. In order to continue pushing the boundaries and make passing plays even faster, this 3-step process needs to be modified. Instead of it being pass, then jump, then shoot, to make it even faster, it needs to be jump, pass, shoot. Meaning that the receiver has to pinpoint the location of the pass before it even happens, which can only happen if the passer is very precise and consistent. This is the exact idea of a pre-jump, and if executed properly, the defense has almost no chance of cutting it off in time. At the recent 2022 Fall Major, we saw a tiny hint of this on a few plays. Definitely more than we've seen before. There was one from Archie that was a decent one. He definitely jumped before the pass was actually sent, and of course it resulted in a goal. There was a super good one from Fever, which was actually the final goal in the series where Power swept G2. It was a complete upset. But the one I think we should pay most attention to is this one from Astral. Rather than a pre-jump from the ground, he calls for a pass high, goes all the way up to the ceiling, jumps off, and slams it into the net. This kind of play is brilliant because it happens all the way up by the ceiling, nearly impossible to cut off unless the defense pre-jumps as well. It also allows the receiver to strike from a high angle, which is so much more difficult to read than a front-on shot. And this is by far one of the most powerful ways to shoot in Rocket League. I mean, seriously, look at this. Just bang! And by the way, this exact thing right here is a classic freestyle move that we've seen for years, but we're seeing it used more and more in pro play recently because seriously, this is so deadly, and honestly, it's not even that hard to set up, especially since you can kind of adjust for longer by how you drive on the ceiling. I can't wait to see this play more. I think it's totally underutilized, and it definitely aligns with continuing to up the speed of the game. There's a fatal flaw in normal Rocket League rotation that I think has yet to be fully exploited. Something professional players are all really good at is reading the energy and pacing of the play, and they use that ability to predict the likelihood of a massive clear or shot. As the play slows down, the chance of a big clear out of nowhere decreases because the ball and players have low momentum. As the play speeds up, the chance of a big clear increases because everything's moving around faster. You can tell pros are super good at reading this abstract idea because the last man on each team tends to position further away as the play speeds up, but they push significantly closer as the play slows down. However, the fact that they push this close when it slows down leaves a huge chance to punish it. Every so often in the RLCS, a player or team will pull off a pinch in a totally unexpected way. It's definitely not common, but if you watch RLCS regularly, you can probably think of a few times this has happened. What makes the pinch a completely unique mechanic in Rocket League is that it doesn't need to start at high momentum. The pace of the play can be super slow, baiting the opponents into pushing up further, but still generating a ton of power out of nowhere. Whenever a pinch goal happens, that's almost always how it works. But even so, I haven't noticed any teams particularly taking advantage of this. It remains a rare tactic that often only happens by accident. Obviously, this doesn't mean players should go for ground pinches and cookser pinches all the time. That would definitely get predictable, especially since the setups for those are pretty slow and obvious. But team pinches, on the other hand, are extremely underutilized in my opinion. Particularly when executing on your defensive half, allowing the opponents to push up extra far. Goals like these can't really be prevented unless the last defender plays extra passive, even in scenarios where it seems completely safe. This play from Falcons is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. The pinch was clearly unexpected since the play had low momentum just a moment before, and it resulted in a goal that felt truly unfair from Chicago's point of view. The best part about this is it's totally repeatable. It doesn't rely on any outstanding factors like a lucky bounce or a 50 with the opponent at all. It's simply a matter of spotting the situations and executing them. And right now, for the most part, unless the setup for one is as obvious as it can be, these professional teams don't actually seem to be looking for them from what I've seen. There are a ton of situations on defense, even in pro play where space is limited, where teams can totally pull off unexpected team pinches. They're just one step away from doing so. I'm showing a few on screen that I found pretty quickly right now. The only thing missing is the early comms to prepare for it. We know these players are capable of scoring them, and the time and space is clearly there. It just takes one team to start using them on a regular basis, and I'm sure the rest will follow along. Next up, we've got the zapdash. I talked about this mechanic before in my new mechanics of 2022 video. You might know it as the landing wave dash from there. More recently, since I made that video, it has blown up even more than it did originally. A ton of pros are learning it now, and you can actually already see it being used in RLCS occasionally. People on Twitter argued on what the name of it should be because, of course, they did. Some people call it the zap dash, some people call it the donkey dash, but I'm definitely not going to call it that because that just sounds really stupid. But if you haven't heard about it yet, it's essentially a way to do a wave dash immediately when landing from an aerial or after a speed flip. Timing an empty jump perfectly with your car leaning slightly forward can allow your front wheels to pop up, which puts you in a perfect position to wave dash. If done properly in the right moments, you can reach max speed where you otherwise wouldn't be able to. Apparently Jack is one of the main pros who's added this move to his skill set, but others are learning it too. It doesn't seem to result in goals or saves directly, but it can definitely be the difference in speed a player needs to get a better 50-50 or rotate back sooner in threes. I went ahead and asked Zapatos for his opinion on how useful it is. He seems to still be the best in the world at this mechanic, that's why it's named after him. He basically said that it isn't quite as game-changing in 3v3, he's not scoring goals or making saves specifically because of it, but it's really helpful for speed in general and saving boost. If you want to learn more about it, you can check out my mechanics of 2022 video, that'll also be in the end screen of this video. I don't expect this mechanic to cause waves in the scene as a whole and shift the way the game is played entirely, but I do think most pros will have learned it by the end of the year, so be on the lookout. A lot of them are using it already. For this one, the name itself could mean multiple things, but what I'm talking about is this right here. A normal aerial up to the ball, land on the ceiling, jump off, and a complete slammer into the net. I'm willing to bet the first time this was done in RLCS was probably like years ago, but the more I pay attention to it, the more often I see it pulled off nowadays. It caught my eye originally when Sipical did this insane one off the corner a couple months ago. It's just so fast and powerful. It's pretty similar to the shot I talked about for pre-jumps. He's able to get so much power from an angle that's tough to read with how high it is. So since then, I've kept my eye out for shots similar to it, and there have actually been a decent amount. At the fall major alone, I counted 3 that were just like it. That's definitely much more common than it was not too long ago. But the brilliance of this shot goes a lot deeper than just how cool it looks. Normally on double taps, where the ball is mostly above your car instead of out in front, you would need to slow down as you approach it in the air so you don't go flying way too high away from it. Otherwise, you would have to just boost straight back down after so you can still reach the double tap. So it's helpful to slow down as you approach it instead. But because of that little slowdown, you're actually getting to the ball a little bit later, which could be the difference in getting dunked or not. But with this ceiling reset mechanic, you're not supposed to slow down at all as you approach the ball. In fact, if anything, you're speeding up even after the hit. So you're reaching the ball even faster, less of a chance to get dunked. And obviously the whole point is to land on the ceiling, so it kind of works out. And with that ceiling reset, you now have a much more deadly angle than you would on a normal double tap, as well as having a dodge available for a more powerful and precise finish. The only possible downside to this mechanic is how much boost it takes to pull it off. On Typical's shot, he had 78 when he first jumped, and he used every last bit of it. So it's not something you can do all the time whenever you want. Fortunately though, for professional players, boost conservation and general efficiency has improved so much that mechanics like these are in fact possible on a consistent basis now. For example, look at this shot from First Killer. It's from about a year and a half ago. He had 88 boost upon first jumping, and he used all of it for what is considered a pretty normal double tap by today's standards. Nowadays, players like Sipical are able to do even more with even less boost. So for that reason, it makes a lot of sense why it hasn't become super common until recently. And considering how useful it is and how fun it is to practice, I definitely expect to see these shots happen even more often continuing into 2023. My most successful prediction from last year, as I mentioned before, would definitely have to be the dummy play, or fake aerials, whatever you want to call it. But to my surprise, the evolution of it went far beyond what I originally thought. The overall reason why this play works so well is because you're able to communicate to your team in voice chat that you're going to fake this ball before you even reveal a hint of it through your car language. Okay, that was kind of a mouthful, hold on. For those that don't know, car language is like body language, but for your car. So basically, if you go for a shot and air roll a little bit to the left, the opponent can reasonably predict that you're gonna hit it to the right based on your car language. Essentially, on a dummy play, you're telling your opponents that you're gonna do one thing through your car language, while you're telling your teammates that you're gonna do another by giving a call out such as, "I'm faking." The result gives your teammates a complete head start on the read, while giving the opponents a massive delay on it. This overall idea is what I'll call deception. And what I didn't realize at the time of that video is that you can apply this extremely effective idea to so many more situations than just the fake aerials. And there's already a couple teams that are fully catching on to it. The guy who really opened my eyes to this is Gregan, and I think he explains it really well.
There is no play that shows deception better than this one by Gen G to win the whole tournament. So you see this play right here, the first thing you see is Chronic presenting a clear right side of the pitch shot, but already has communicated in comms to hit it off in this direction. So we'll see the approach to the ball and the last minute switch that comes into play. And as that ball goes off to the left, Rise, who was trying to follow through Dunk, misread it. Astral, who was sitting on the goal line looking to play off of that touch, started turning towards the left slightly, and then at the last moment realized it was going off in a different direction. Meanwhile, the whole time Jack was fully aware it was coming towards him, who was in the blind spot of the opponent. And then to finish it all off, you have Nolly coming in, who very clearly called that he was passing it to Jack as he was approaching, but from the defensive point of view, it looked like he was going to shoot. At that last moment, Jack is able to get the shot, and this is where the deception really comes in. You have to communicate it before you make the play, and whilst you're approaching the play, change up your car movement to make it look like you're doing something else, and at that last moment, complete what you originally said you're going to do in comms. This isn't always going to work, but what I really want to see is the creativity that comes out from pro players. Now they're utilizing comms more. We might see the back of the car, the side of the car, maybe the top of the car get used a little bit more creatively, so you can change up which part of the car you use to deceive your opponent. I'm really excited to see what players can do with this season and in 2023.
Big thanks to Gregan for that analysis. You can check out his channel down below. I've got some big announcements coming up that I'm really excited about, so stay tuned for that and be sure to subscribe if you're not already. But yeah, other than that, thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next one.